I wasn't there for his money. I didn't care about his cars, clothes, or fancy friends. I only had one reason to be near him, to find the man who disappeared after ruining my sister's life and left her pregnant, alone, and crying herself to sleep every night. Hi, I'm sharing my story today not for sympathy, but to expose how quick people are to judge without knowing the truth. If you've ever been misjudged or stood up for someone you love, this story is for you. Stick around till the end because karma never misses. It started the night my sister collapsed in the kitchen, crying so hard she couldn't breathe. She clutched her stomach, not in pain, but in fear. I remember the way her voice cracked when she finally said the words, "I'm pregnant." It felt like time stopped. She was 23, working two jobs, barely scraping by. And now she was going to be a mom, completely alone. There was no boyfriend in the picture, no partner holding her hand, just silence and secrets. At first, we tried not to push her. Everyone assumed she'd tell us when she was ready. But weeks passed, then months. Her belly started to show, and still, not a word about the father. Our parents were trying their best to be supportive, but the stress started eating away at the house. Money became tight. The mood at home grew heavier. My sister drifted into herself. Some nights, I'd hear her crying quietly in her room. Other nights, she just stared at the ceiling, like she was trying to disappear. One evening, after a doctor's appointment, she broke down in the car. I pulled over, thinking she was having a panic attack, but in between sobs, she finally whispered a name. I almost didn't catch it. It felt like some invisible wall shattered inside her. She told me about the man who had made promises, who had charmed her, who had left her as soon as he heard the word pregnant. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. She hadn't wanted to tell us because part of her believed he'd come back, that maybe, just maybe, she mattered enough for him to do the right thing. But he never did. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't just sit back and watch my sister lose herself. I couldn't let that man walk away like nothing happened. So I started digging. At first, all I had was a name. But with some time, some late night research, and a few favors pulled from friends who owed me, I found him. Turns out he wasn't just anybody. He was somebody, rich, popular. The kind of guy who shows up at charity galas, gets written about in lifestyle blogs, and flashes smiles that make people forget who he really is. But I hadn't forgotten. He thought he'd left her behind. But he didn't count on me. I knew getting close to him wouldn't be easy. Men like him live in bubbles, expensive ones, filled with designer suits, glass-walled penthouses, and people who laugh too loud at their bad jokes. I wasn't part of that world, not even close, but I had something stronger than money or charm. I had a reason. So I built my way in, slowly, carefully, like stepping through a minefield. I started with his social media. He was one of those people who documented everything: parties, dinners, gym selfies, private jets, always surrounded by the same kind of crowd: loud, rich, shallow. But I wasn't judging. I was studying. I figured out where he hung out, who he trusted, what kind of girl caught his eye. And then I made myself fit that mold. Not perfectly, just enough to catch his attention without making him suspicious. I borrowed clothes from friends, changed how I did my makeup, even practiced the way I spoke. It was weird, pretending to be someone else, but I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for my sister. I showed up at a charity event he was rumored to attend. My heart was racing, palms sweaty, but I kept my cool. And there he was, laughing like he hadn't left a whole life behind. When we met, he noticed me immediately. Maybe it was the dress, or the way I smiled just enough. He came over with that confident swagger, introduced himself like he thought I didn't already know who he was. He looked me up and down, eyes calculating. He asked what I did, where I was from, and I gave him just enough of the truth to keep it believable. By the end of the night, he asked for my number. The next day, he texted, then called, then invited me out. I played it casual, like I wasn't impressed. That's when he said it, half joking, half testing. "You're not one of those gold diggers, right?" I laughed it off like it didn't sting. But deep down, I wanted to scream. Gold digger? Number, I wasn't after his money. I was after the truth. He didn't know it yet, but I wasn't there to be part of his life. I was there to hold him accountable for the one he tried to forget. It didn't take long for him to start testing me. At first, it was subtle. He'd take me to overpriced restaurants and accidentally leave his wallet just to see if I'd offer to pay. I did, without hesitation. Then he tried showing up late, canceling plans last minute, acting like his time was more valuable than mine. I kept my cool. I knew what he was doing. He thought I was just another girl chasing his money, his lifestyle. It was almost funny. He was so focused on proving I was a gold digger, he didn't realize I was already 3 steps ahead. The more time we spent together, the more he let his guard down. I started to see cracks in the image he projected. Sometimes he'd get quiet out of nowhere, like his mind was somewhere else. Once, he told me he wasn't the kind of guy people could rely on. He said it with a smirk, but his eyes looked tired. I knew that part wasn't an act. His friends didn't make things easier. They were the type who drank too much and talked too loud. They'd whisper when I walked by, make comments they thought I couldn't hear. One night, one of them actually asked him in front of me, "So how long before this one asks for a car or a condo?" He just laughed. I forced a smile. I'd never felt more humiliated and more determined. The truth is, every minute I spent pretending to be someone I wasn't, I hated it. But I reminded myself why I was there. I wasn't chasing his world. I was surviving in it long enough to collect what I needed. I started asking quiet questions, watching his expressions when certain names came up, looking for anything, any slip, any connection, to confirm what my sister had told me. One evening, we were walking back to his car when he stopped and said, "You're different. I don't get what you want from me." I smiled and said, "Not everything's about money, you know." He nodded like he didn't believe me. And that was fine. Let him keep doubting me. Let him keep assuming. Because soon I'd have enough to force him to remember the life he left behind and the woman he broke in the process. It was a rainy evening when he invited me over to his house for the first time. I expected something flashy, something to show off. And yeah, the place was stunning. Glass walls, marble floors, art I didn't recognize, but knew cost more than my car. But what struck me most was how empty it felt. Not physically, it was full of expensive things, but emotionally, no warmth, no signs of a real life being lived. Just cold beauty and a silence that felt too heavy for a house that big. He gave me a quick tour, casually dropping prices and designer names like it was normal. I nodded, pretending to be impressed, but something felt off. There was a tension in him, like he was trying to prove something. When he left me alone in his office for a few minutes to take a call, I stood there quietly, not touching anything. And then I saw it, a drawer slightly open, just enough to catch my eye. I didn't go digging. I didn't have to. Right on top, in plain sight, was a photo. It was my sister, smiling, hair tied up, wearing the same blue dress she wore the night they met. My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. He knew. All this time, he knew exactly who I was. He knew what he did. He wasn't clueless. He was avoiding it, hiding it, running from it. I sat down and waited. When he came back, I asked him directly, calm, controlled, "Do you remember this girl?" I held up the photo. His face changed instantly. The arrogance vanished. He didn't speak for a few seconds, and when he did, his voice was low. I didn't think you'd find out like this, he said. Turns out his family had stepped in when they found out about the pregnancy. They paid him off, told him to cut all contact, and he, too afraid to fight, did exactly that. He tried to move on, to drown the guilt in parties, women, and success. But I could see it in his eyes. The guilt never left. Still, he never tried to make it right. He just buried it deeper. He looked at me like he wanted to explain, to justify. But I didn't want excuses. Not after everything my sister had been through. I stood up and told him the only truth that mattered. You left her to suffer alone. And no apology can undo that. He followed me out of the room, calling my name, his voice shaking in a way I hadn't heard before. Maybe it was fear, maybe guilt. I didn't care. I had spent too long watching my sister break down in silence to let his sudden wave of remorse soften me. He asked me to sit, to let him explain, but I kept walking toward the door. I didn't owe him that comfort. You don't understand what I was dealing with, he said behind me. I turned around slowly, finally facing him. No, I said. I understand perfectly. You were scared, so you disappeared. You didn't just walk away from her, you walked away from your own child. He looked down. For a second, I saw something crack in him. They said it would ruin everything, he mumbled. My reputation, my career, my life wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility. He said it like it made things better, like that was some sort of valid excuse. I stepped closer, my voice low but firm. She wasn't ready either, but she didn't run. She stayed. She carried that baby alone. She cried herself to sleep for months. She was scared, too, but she didn't get the luxury of walking away. He tried to offer some clumsy apology, something about wanting to make it right now, about being young and stupid then. But I wasn't there for reconciliation. I was there for truth. I told him I didn't come into his life to punish him or to get revenge. I came so he would see. So he'd be forced to remember the face of the woman he abandoned and the pain he left behind. He asked if he could meet the baby, if there was any way to fix it. I laughed, not out of humor, but disbelief. You had your chance, I said. You made your choice. And then I walked away. No dramatic exit, no turning back. Just quiet steps out of a world I never wanted to be part of. I didn't tell my sister everything right away. I waited until I could look her in the eyes and be sure that I did what I came to do. When I finally told her, she didn't cry. She just nodded, wiped her eyes, and held her baby tighter. And that said everything. Life didn't suddenly become perfect after that. There was no magical closure, no dramatic redemption arc. But there was peace, the kind that comes from finally knowing the truth, even if it hurts. My sister was quieter when I told her, not shocked, not angry, just quiet, like something inside her had settled. She sat still for a long time, then finally whispered, I knew he wouldn't come back, but part of me hoped he would. I didn't know what to say to that. I just sat beside her and held her hand. Over the next few weeks, she started to change. Not all at once, but little by little. She smiled more. She let us help her more. She stopped pretending she was okay and started being honest about the fear, the pressure, the loneliness. I watched her become a mother in the strongest, rawest way. Not perfect, but present. That baby, her baby, became her whole world. And slowly she stopped waiting for someone else to save them. As for him, he tried reaching out, a message here, an email there, apologies, explanations, even offers to help financially. But she didn't answer. She said if he really wanted to be there, he wouldn't have waited until it was convenient. And honestly, I agreed with her. Some bridges don't need to be burned. They just need to be left behind. I kept thinking about everything he said, all the excuses and guilt he tried to pass off like they meant something. But in the end, he made his choice, and we made ours. We chose to move forward without him. We chose to let go of the anger, but not the memory, because forgetting would mean letting him off the hook, and we weren't about to do that. People always think stories like this end in revenge or forgiveness, but sometimes they just end in strength, in survival, in building something better from the pieces that were left behind. That's what my sister did. That's what I helped her do. We didn't need his name. We didn't need his money. We had each other, and that was enough. And maybe, just maybe, the next time someone like him thinks they can walk away without consequence, they'll think twice. Because not everyone stays quiet, and not everyone walks away. Don't judge people by what you think they want. Some are just trying to protect those they love. If you've ever had to fight silently for someone else, I see you. Like, share, or comment if you believe truth always comes out, no matter how long it takes.